I want to say thank you for those that are watching, listening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you to the Gathering Spot for partnering with us on this Storytime with Legendary Jerry. Of course, I am Big Jerry Clark, and this is my wonderful co-host, Miss Jamie Page. She look like she getting some shit together. She's still shaking and moving. But
sorry.
I want to say this that to everybody that's watching, listening, we hear the term Atlanta influences everything thrown around a lot. And the foundation and one of the main architects is with us tonight. And I'm very proud to say, and I think I texted her earlier. And I was just like, I just want people to know how dope she is, because, you know, from music to, you know, to her advocacy, she's just the shit, man. Just to be just straight up. So Shanti Shoestring Das, welcome. Thank you. Welcome to the Legendary Jerry Show.
Thank you. I know we've been trying to make this happen for some time.
Finally.
Thank you for being with me. It's an honor to talk to you and Jamie today.
Hey, yeah, and we really appreciate you. We've been on like a whole tour, you know, with media and interviews. So we really appreciate you taking out the time to be with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Am I one of the only people that still calls you Shoestring?
No, actually you're not. Anybody that knows me from back in the day, and especially a lot of DJs and a lot of guys that I worked with, you know, who ran street team divisions, you know, from other labels and stuff. And, you know, I might have my head turned and somebody be like, Shoestring. And I know that it's somebody from my past, you know, and I always smile, and I still go by that name.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, Shoestring, apparently you guys know each other so well. So how do you even know Jerry? Like, obviously that goes way back. So how do you know this guy?
I mean, we came up in Atlanta music culture together. Like, it's all a family. You know, everybody was hustling and working and doing their own thing. And every time we all see each other now, it's all love, because the hard work and the grind and the respect was there. We all saw each other, you know. Can we curse on your show?
Yeah.
We saw each other bust our asses.
Hey.
Right?
Shanti, say that again for people.
We saw each other bust our asses all the time, and it was nothing but love and respect, period.
All the time.
We family.
That's what's up.
And let me say this. I'm gonna, first of all, for those that are watching and listening, Shanti is real ATS, like Southwest Atlanta, Mays High School. Like, it don't get more ATL than her. So to be able to like watch your testimony and your groundwork that you've laid and all that, it's truly really a blessing, Shanti, for me to be able to, for us 20 plus years to be able to sit here and do an interview via Zoom, even in the conditions that we're in the world. Like, I want people to know like your contributions and all that. And to go back to what Jamie said, how do we meet? I remember one of the first times there was an artist, a young kid, 14, 15 years old, used to be everywhere, Jamie, at cookouts, at pool parties, at the bowling alley. And every time I used to see this dude, there was this young lady named Shanti holding his hand, like literally escort him everywhere. And that young man became Usher Raymond. And I used to literally watch her, like I say, literally take him everywhere and lead him everywhere. And that's going to go into my first question. At what point, when you first met Usher and his mom, Jay Pat and them, when they came here from Chattanooga, did you really feel like, I mean, it was your job from a marketing standpoint to take him around and do what you did, but at what point did you really realize he was really special and he was really going to be a star?
You know, Usher was different because I noticed, like, okay, so he was, like you say, he was like 14 years old when we signed, and the first single I think was Call Me a Mac off of the soundtrack. And, you know, a lot was going on. I was spending a lot of time with Outkast, and I think once, LA got the records that he wanted and made the project a priority, we hit the road. So I was there doing promotions very early with him. And Jerry, it was really his work ethic. I've never seen anybody put in the time, whether it's rehearsing, going to these hole-in-the-wall clubs, performing. It might not be a packed house, but he would still hit the stage with grace. Like, I know I'm building. This is what we got to do. And from a creative perspective, like, Usher always came to the table with ideas. And I just knew, like, this kid is different. Some artists will allow you to, you the record company, so you put the plan together. You tell me what we got to do to rock. But he was very specific. He always wanted to be involved with it. Was even down to the postcards. Like, he would call me about his logo. When he first did that first logo with the U and the circle around it, he was involved in every single thing. And even when we, sent him up to stay with Puff for about 6 months, I think in like 94, 95, he was gracious about that, and he wanted to go and soak up the flavor and learn as much as he could from somebody like Puff. Like, he was just always willing to do the necessary work. Like, do the work. That's what I tell even artists or executives now. You got to be willing to do the work. Usher did the work. Nobody gave this kid back then anything. He worked his ass off, and it paid off.
Sure.
That's even dope at a young age.
What was it, man? I look at the LaFace days. What was it in the culture at LaFace that that allowed y'all to put out so many dope ass executives that thrived? Yourself, Sherry Riley, Taye, Travis Knuckles, KP. Like, I'm like, what was it? What was it in that culture that really that showed you all the way where so many executives left there and really thrived?
Yeah, I often look back and I was like, we had a dream team, like, for real. And I think it was LA and Babyface's. It was LA and Babyface's, example that they set. And they had a high bar. So they kept the bar high. And anybody that they brought into the company, they basically treated us like family. Now that's not to say, we ain't work hard. Again, everybody was going, 18-hour days, moving quickly, but LA really, like, thought out who he wanted in these positions, whether it was like a DL Warfield. Look, come on, DL is one of the best artists out now in graphic designers.
Yes. He's incredible. Like,
DL is the man, KP is the man. Sherry Riley is now this world-renowned speaker and, was an incredible marketer. I just think it was like working and Babyface, and, we called him Kenny. He was more so in the LA office. So he wasn't in the Atlanta office. But it was funny, whenever Kenny would come to town, it was like rose petals were thrown and shit, like rolling out the red carpet for him. But LA was the one that was sitting there cracking the whip every single day. And, he was always like, the funny thing too is, JD talked about this not too long ago, and I want to say Brian Michael Cox too. A lot of the Usher projects, the last song recorded sometimes would end up being the one where we release. We might have already mastered one version of the album, but they come back with that one song, and LA was like, you got to go with the right one. And he had this keen sense of, like, a gut instinct. Like, that's an intangible, right? That you can't buy. Like, LA knew if you had the it factor or not, and that guy knew what a hit was. And he demanded that same level of excellence from his staff. And so, I often tell people, like, shit, I wore the L on my chest like it was my company. Like, I own LaFace Records, but every single employee treated it the same way. Like, we were like, shit, we work for LaFace, and then he would reward us by, again, taking us on staff retreats and keeping us motivated. And, like, Jamie, it was a bomb. And to be a female working in that environment, I like the fact that he hired females. It wasn't just an all-male environment. It was very balanced in terms of the male-female camaraderie and work ethic and just the number of people that were there. It was just a special time. We really felt like we were in the beginning, like the Motown of the South, right? So there was, we had Uptown, it was Uptown doing their thing, Bad Boy, and LaFace, you know, like we really and Def Jam, of course, from a hip hop perspective, but these were like the iconic labels, you know, from the 90s that were doing their thing. And we had such a sense of pride. Like even when, you know, earlier this year, pre-COVID, when we went to the YouTube celebration that honored Babyface in LA, it was like being at LaFace all over again. You know, when we see each other, there's so much love, there's so much respect. I mean, it was just a special moment in time. But again, I have to credit LA for really setting the tone and teaching us how to be fly, just like rest in peace, Andre Harrell. Like Andre taught his crew at Uptown what it meant to be fly. And LA like had the bar of excellence raised so high, and not just Black excellence, but also just excellence, period, you know?
So what was that? What was it like though when Babyface would come into town? So was it kind of like everybody was? It was like ooh and awe, or if it like, you know, you said LA had this, you know, work ethic, but if Babyface comes into town, was it like everybody had to be on their P's and Q's, or was it still like laid back, or was it everybody was kind of scared? Like what was that emotion?
So I think that's a great question, Jamie. I think it was in the beginning, it was kind of ooh and ah, because he was still Babyface. You know what I mean?
Right.
But quickly we got comfortable with him, and it was just like, oh, okay, that's Kenny, you know, and he kind of lay back in the cut. So yeah, we got used to it, but I ain't gonna lie. At first, I'm like, oh shit, that's Babyface. Like, okay.
Right.
But he was a pleasure.
How does it feel, Shanti? Like we're speaking about the LaFace days and what artists came from that throughout their career that had a diamond selling album. One album to sell 10 million records. TLC, Outkast, Usher, all came from that building. How does that make you feel knowing that you had your hands in the development of some of, I mean, a diamond selling album is not, that just don't, that ain't no fly by night shit. So, you know, it started in the whole groundwork in the embryo stages. Do you just like drive sometimes and be like, damn, I really had my hands in the development of, I mean, numerous artists, but those three artists that had a diamond selling album?
I mean, it's humbling for sure. Even, you know, you talk about Tony Braxton, who sold millions, and Goody Mob. And, you know, there are times where I just pinch myself and I go, like, for example, the night I was there with Outkast when they won the Source Award, like that picture of the three of us has been reshared over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm like, wow, like it's humbling. I don't know, it just feels good. It was so many of us, you know, it really was a team effort, right, for that 10 million. So you obviously start with the artists and their brilliance and their creativity, but everybody from A&R to marketing to packaging to, you know, publicity, like we worked really, really, really hard. And it was just such an honor to see, you know, the benefits of all the hard work come together and be able to sell records. And that was a special time too, like, you know, the physical CD. I'm trying to see if I got any CDs around here. I had some CDs, but I might have.
Don't pull them out. Don't pull, because I got some in my storage I just saw.
But the fact, you know, I'm going to tell you what did it for me was like seeing, when I first saw my name, Jerry, in a liner note.
Oh, in the J card.
It tell me nothing.
Oh, people don't realize the thrill you get from seeing your name in a J card. Oh my God.
Listen.
That's what's up.
There's for a kid just breaking into the business and, you know, your first record you working is fucking Southern Playalistic and you see your name.
You thinking, hey, you like I done came from Syracuse University and I got my name in shit now. My name in the J card.
Listen, that was like hitting lottery.
I know. Like I mean, and it's crazy, like you said, like you guys were family, and it could tell in the work, like just it's impeccable work. Like I mean, you even went to high school with Lo, right? With CeeLo.
Yeah, Lo, and you know, half of the Goody Mob went to Mays. Chili went to Mays. I mean,
so like, that's Crazy. What was that like? Were y'all like cool back then? And then like you guys talk about it and laugh about it now, like, holy shit, we were in high school together and look at us now.
So I laugh and joke with Tebow because we're closer in age. CeeLo was younger than me. I didn't really know him that well when he was there.
Cujo came out in 90. He came out in 90 or 89.
So Joe and T came out in 90. They were younger than me, but I was a high school football trainer.
I didn't know that. All these years, I didn't know that.
I was a high school football and basketball trainer, Jerry. So I was a little tomboy, but I love sports. And so Joe and T played football. So that's how we were cool, you know, from those days. But now, yeah, we look back at it and we laugh because Mays was an iconic high school. I mean, shit, just like Mays.
Shut up.
Come on, Mays.
Oh, my God.
Man, I'm just saying. It was Mays and it was Doug. Which one?
Benjamin E. Mays. Benjamin E. Mays was a great school for excellence. And Kwanzaa Hall, y'all done put out a lot of solid people.
Yes,
a lot of solid talent that came out of Benjamin Mays.
But I mean, you know, we look back and we laugh at those times, but it just, you know, and we also like, we hung out. Like I was laughing with T-Boz, you know, we used to go to the haunted houses together. Usher would come with us, JD, like, so we go from the office to dinner, to the club, to, you know, hanging out. And then I might have to go back to the office at 11 o'clock, pick up some 12 inches, hit the GC, you know, hit up the strip clubs, distribute those records. Like it was nonstop.
So it was
what artists to all of those face days did you think? I mean, of course, y'all had a full roster. Y'all had, I mean, the artists we named, but who did you think that really was going to blow? Just didn't take off.
So I really thought As Yet could have rivaled Boys II Men. That was our boy band. As Yet had some hits, and they did good, but they didn't go as big as I thought they would. And then there is one artist to me that never really, for whatever reasons, you know, got his moment. Sam Salter. A lot of people don't even know who Sam Salter is. This Sam Salter first album, oh my God. If somebody could remake it today, and it would. That album was incredible, but it just, I think it might have been too many other priorities at the label.
Yeah. And you know who else I was going to say? Sam. And I really, really was fucking with Society of Soul. I really liked them.
Oh,
that whole instrumentation with organized noise. They were dope.
That album too, I still listen
to that album to this day. And the same thing, I think timing was just off, but everyone respects that album. And we all respected it within the company. I just think it was bad timing. I'm sorry, what did you say, Jamie?
Yeah. I think we're having some, like, I don't know, technical stuff.
Out of my mouth that I was saying the timing. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was saying the timing.
What'd you say, Jamie?
Everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I just told this story recently. When I first came in, Shanti, and you can appreciate this story. I came in, Jamie, you know, doing street team promotions when I worked for Relativity Ruthless. And I was out on the road with Bone Thugs on a lot of our shows on tour. It was an artist named Outkast that was opening up for us. And I remember, like in some cities, cats was throwing their snippet tapes back at them, oh, who these country ass niggas, you know? And it was interesting how I was just telling the story to somebody how shit changes, because just in a matter of years, Bone Thugs, don't get it wrong, they were as hot as you could be at one point. But then that shift, that change, as we see in anything in life, but especially in this industry, how folks went from throwing their shit at Outkast to arguably the greatest two-man rap group in history. So you just gotta, you know, really be careful on this. I'm just gonna say this industry is really interesting on how it works out. Because Jamie, when I tell in a lot of dates, and Shanti, you might have been out on that tour. It was like, you know, it was early on, but it was just the fact of, you know, folks calling them country and all. How did you deal with that? You know, with that New York arrogance when it came to, if it wasn't from New York, we ain't fucking with it. How did you deal with that from a marketing standpoint when you was out promoting them early on?
It took us a while to crack New York. Now, I will say, you know, Puff, because he spent a lot of time with LA, he came on board and supported, he helped to direct the first video for Players Ball. And so there was a lot of love there, but it still didn't trickle down to all the DJs. So even though Puff got some people, like a lot of industry people on board, New York and some of them hardcore DJs was still very hard to crack. You know, Flex wasn't playing Outkast, you know, early on. It took a long time, but, you know, rest in peace to Big Cap. Cap was one of the first ones, because, you know, Cap had his underground show on Hot 97, and he was one of the first ones to really mess with us. But, you know, like going to markets like the Bay Area, you know, shout out to Sway and Tech, the Wake Up Show. They were one of the first people to support us. You know, Greg Street down in Dallas when he was at KKDA and then came to Atlanta. Like, Greg helped to break us in Dallas. It was markets like Dallas and the Bay Area, and of course the South, you know, showed love instantly. But it took New York a long time. And I was telling somebody this not too long ago, even after Outkast went through probably the first 3 platinum albums, I literally remember being in New York City and we went to the MTV Awards. They weren't nominated that year, but they made us go through the front door. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is Outkast, a platinum group. I don't care that they're not nominated. How are you gonna ask Outkast to go through the front door? That shit was so disrespectful. And they didn't let us in. We had to go through the front door to our seats. I was like, wow. We've come a long way, but we still got a long way. Like this, it was unbelievable. I was so pissed off. I was so upset. So it was different times where we felt like the respect.
Did
y'all go?
And this was, you said this was after. This wasn't a Southern playlist. This was after multiple albums, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. They were Outkast, but like people knew them by then. Like absolutely.
Jamie, you were saying something. It seems like it's jumping around. So y'all.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's my connection or. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's jumping around. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying, did you end up going in through the front door? Were you just like, screw this?
No, we actually went, and I can't remember what the guys said exactly, but we all weren't happy about it, but we ended up going in. But it was embarrassing to have to walk through the front door. And that's not to say like artists are too good to walk through the same door that everybody else walks through, but it's just a matter of respect.
That's disrespect.
Because they definitely, yeah, you know what I mean? It's, you know, because backstage there's an opportunity to build and chop it up with other artists. You know, they might talk about collaborations. You know how it is, the camaraderie and being backstage. So it wasn't about being backstage and being caught up in the hype. It was just the respect level and being able to talk to some of their other peers in the game.
Right. And networking. It's important to network. Yeah. So, I mean, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know.
So I wanted sorry, Jerry, I just had a quick question. I wanted to jump back because you mentioned that, yeah, you mentioned LaFace hired a lot of women. So that's pretty cool to hear, because a lot of times we hear that women aren't respected in the industry. So how was that, like being a woman and being one of the most powerful women in the music industry? What was that even like leaving LaFace and then going up to New York? Was it the same feel, or did you stand out more like a woman?
Oh, it definitely wasn't the same feel. Family time was over. Once I got to New York and started working for the larger corporations, it felt more corporate. It felt more like a job as opposed to something that I just loved doing. Over the years, I dealt with a lot of phoniness, a lot of people that, when I look back now, I just think it was people's insecurities because they were trying to secure their spot. You know, some of those same folks I'm cool with now to this day, but back then, you know, it was like, is she coming for my job? Who does she think she is coming up in this spot? And I'm like, hey, I'm just here to do a job. I'm not here to cause no friction. But it was a lot of drama working on the corporate side of music, for sure. And being a woman on top of that, you know, dealing with older white men. Some were great to work with. Some were like, who is this little girl? Who is this little black girl kind of thing. So it was like proving my worth all over again at times. For some people, not for all. Some people definitely respected me and I appreciated that. And we're still cool to this day. But I definitely, you know, had to deal with some adversities, you know, once I left LaFace.
Right. Did you get like hit on a lot? Because I know I hear a lot of stories from women in the industry. Like, of course, people made passes at them for sex in exchange for things. Like, have you experienced anything like that?
I have, but not a whole lot. And when it did happen, I like took care of it and nipped it in the bud. And, you know, that's kind of where the whole shoestring vibe came from. Like, you know, Jerry will tell you I wore, and I still to this day, I'm more so now that I'm out of the corporate side of the business, I'm back in my sneakers and sweatshirts. Like that was me, that was my vibe. I wore baggy clothes and, you know, I tried to kind of divert a little bit of the attention from all of that and, you know, until I got, you know, more successful. So I don't know, you know, yes, you deal with it, but, you know, you got to handle it when it happens. So you can't just laugh it off and act like it didn't happen. Because these are people that you have to keep seeing now. If you don't mind people doing that, then that's one thing. But, you know, there was one instance where, you know, I damn near came to blows with this one person. I was like, nah, bro, like, I'm not the one. Like, I'm not quite sure what you're used to, but it's not going to go down like this. I love my job. I love what I'm doing, but this shit won't happen.
You fucking.
So maybe that was like me being 15, Shanti, being, you know.
Hey, the things that I've seen in this industry, and you know, with women and some of the things you all have to experience, man, it just ain't cool and it's fucked up, man, on so many different levels. And I'm glad that one situation that you addressed it and you nipped that shit right in the damn bud. You nipped it right in the bud. Let's talk about this transition, Shanti. So so you left Universal. 2009, you was executive vice president there, and you didn't just sit on your hands. You immediately jumped into, not that you wasn't like this before, but advocacy, Shanti. And not just that, but in 2010 is when you released the Hip Hop Professional, right? The part 1. And then you just re-released that in what, 13 or 14? Okay, tell us about that whole, how did that come to fruition? You want to, were you always planning on doing a book to like really lay out the things you laid out in Hip Hop Professional? Or was that something that came to you after you like kind of start distancing yourself from the industry?
So it happened once I moved back home in 2010. You know, I was going over my best friend Cherry's house a lot and just trying to figure out how I could pivot. I wanted to start doing more panels and more speaking. And, you know, she was like, you need to write a book. If you have some sort of piece of published material, that will be a little bit easier for you to get speaking engagements. And I was like, I can't write a book. And she was like, sure you can. She was like, so I literally started writing this book at her house one night. I stayed up all night. I was actually headed to speak on a panel at Princeton University, and I was trying to figure out how I could do more of that. I wrote the whole way on the plane. You ever been from Atlanta to get to Princeton? It's like planes, trains, automobiles. So I wrote on the plane, I wrote on the train, I wrote in the taxi, and I was just putting all of my history down on paper, and it was really cool. And so I ended up self-publishing it. And then I added 7 chapters to it in 2013. And that's kind of how Hip Hop Professional was born. I did a college speaking tour. you know, it was really cool. I partnered with a lot of cool organizations, speaking at HBCUs, and really just trying to empower the younger generation, because I really wanted to teach them a lot of what I had gone through, whether it was being a woman in the industry and how to navigate through the politics, you know, what it was like, you know, if you get stressed out in the business, you know, how can you handle that? Being able to save money, because I blew a lot of paper, as did a lot of us back then. You know, we were making money, but we were spending a lot of money. So I was just trying to give back best practices to, you know, like the freshman crew at that time that was coming in the game.
Yeah. Which brings us, which brings us. Whose phone is that? Hello?
That must be your phone.
Which brings us, I'm sorry. I hear shit. That's not my phone. I don't know what. I just heard some shit ringing. Hey, so which brings us to currently, from the hip hop professional to what we're seeing on your shirt, Silence to Shame. And before you get into the Silence to Shame movement, I just wanted to say thank you, because for a couple reasons. I was diagnosed, and I know me and you talked about this off record, but I'm just being very transparent. I was diagnosed with anxiety close to 10 years ago, and I used to be very, very embarrassed to talk about it, Shanti. Like, you know, just as a Black man, macho, alpha male, I just was always embarrassed to even bring it up, to even mention it, that I was on medication. So I want to thank you just straight up for even being a mental health activist and being an advocate for it, because there's a lot of people, I'm sure, out there that were just like me, that was very embarrassed and didn't want to speak about it. So I just want to say thank you for leading that charge. And for those who don't know, I know you've been all over promoting Silence to Shame, but for those people who that don't know, can you explain to her how you started the movement and your advocacy for mental health awareness?
Yeah, sure. So one, thank you for saying what you said, and thank you for your vulnerability and your transparency on sharing what your experiences were. I think that is extremely important, especially for our Black men to hear. So, you know, kudos to you. And, you know, I'm always a phone call away. We both experience what we experience. And even with COVID-19, it's heightened our levels of anxiety. So you got a friend forever, bro, in me. Just know that. But Silence to Shame was very personal for me. My dad took his own life when I was 7 months old, and in 2014, even when I was, you know, promoting Hip Hop Professional 2.0, my best friend took her own life, and that was a really, really dark time for me. I blame myself, even though I know it wasn't my fault. But, you know, as a friend, you know, I talked to her the day before it happened. So I was trying to figure out what signs did I miss and what had happened. And I, you know, wasn't a stranger to my own depression, but didn't know what to call it. And I came close to taking pills in 2015. I didn't want to die, but I wanted the pain to stop. And luckily I got out of the house that night and called Suicide Prevention Lifeline and called my pastor and my sister and everybody, and we put a plan together. And I ended up seeing a psychiatrist and started on my antidepressant. And once I got to a point where I felt more like myself, in a few months, I started opening up and sharing more. And people were really receptive, and I was shocked. I was terrified to tell people, but I was just listening to God and allowing him to kind of move me. And it's weird, Jerry, like, and Jamie, I've never experienced a desire to want to do something so bad. I mean, the music, I had a real passion, but it was just different. This is different. It's like accepting your purpose from God and walking in it and just saying, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, and I don't know where the money's going to come from. You know, I am going through financial hardships, but I don't know why I feel this need to be the poster child for mental health right now in our community. But I rose to the occasion, and have been running ever since. And we got some great volunteers on board, and we started doing programming, and we started, people talking about it on social media, getting celebrities and artists involved. And, it just started snowballing in terms of the effect that it was having. And, now we're still a young organization. You know the nonprofit space, Jared. We're only 3 years in, but we're doing the work of some of these $1 million organizations, We barely making payroll each month, but, this work is passion work. I was talking to Carrie Hilson the other day on my Wellness check-in, and she was talking about passion over paycheck, and that's really how I feel right now. Like, I feel like I'm saving lives right now, and not just me. Silence is sharing, it's bigger than me, but I feel like our organization is saving lives, and even me sharing my own story. So I will say, I guess I'm helping as well by sharing my own story too. But it is the most fulfilling work that I've ever done. And I want to see this thing grow and erase stigma as much as we can around the world, especially in our communities.
It is, and it really is. And one of our viewers said, we need you. And I have to piggyback off of that and say we do. And I think just witnessing, what was it, May 4th?
May 5th.
May 5th, okay, when everybody, we had the OMG booths and everybody promoted it. And it just opens up like a can of vulnerability. And I don't know this, of course, because we are in COVID-19, but we do need you, because it allowed, especially our Black men, to open up. Like I witnessed after that day, so many people having conversations about mental health. And Jerry, I kudos to you too, anxiety and depression. And it's dope. It's dope what you're doing, and I thank you for it, because I've witnessed it in my own family as well, and I have as well with depression. So it's really cool what you're doing, and I thank you. And off of that, and off of that, like, I know it's always work. So within that, like, do you ever find yourself falling maybe into that slump again? Or, everybody doesn't have a perfect day, but like you said, you reached a really low point. Like, do you ever get in that lane again and you're like, oh shit, I got to pull myself back?
So I don't think I've ever gone, thank God, that low, but I do have my tough days. I lost my sister last year unexpectedly in April of 2019. And
Anjali.
Yeah, that nearly took me out, Jamie. Derry, you know how close we are. You know my brother, and I'm gonna try to right now. My sister was the number one single most important person in my life. And so when my dad took his own life, she helped to raise us. When I was dealing with my first level of anxiety and depression, and I uttered the words, maybe I should just kill myself, in 2001, she was there. When I moved into college, she was there. I mean, she was there every single moment in my life, and I talked to her at least 5-6 times a day. I was texting with her at 10 o'clock one night, and the next morning I get a call that she's gone. I don't wish that on nobody, Jamie. And I didn't go to counseling right away, but I was having a tough time. I was crying so much that I couldn't even really function. Although it's funny, because she died right before Mental Health Awareness Month last year, and I did go into work mode. I wanted to see that work through last year in the month of May, but I didn't do as much as I did this year. But I would do interviews, and I would just immediately burst into tears when I got in the car or whatever. And it's just been really, really hard. And COVID-19, it's tough being without her, because 9 times out of 10, I'm sure I would have been at her home. I would have sheltered in place with my sister. And so grief is this is a level of pain that I didn't think I would have to add on top of everything else that I had to experience. And so I have to reach way deep down and trust God and get out and do the work. I did go through grief counseling. Eventually, I talk to therapists when I need to. I have to stay aware. And then this work, I was telling somebody the other day, pretty much the first couple of weeks of June, I'm just going to really lay all the way low, because it's hard doing this work and sharing my story a lot. it is a heavy subject. It's a heavy topic. And that's why, like, you know, after I'm done, this is my last interview for the day. I got another webinar tomorrow. I have 3 more things to do tomorrow, literally. And then Friday, I'm just going to zone out till Tuesday and just not talk about mental health, not do this work, because I have to protect my own peace.
Yeah.
As well. And then in addition to doing these interviews and work, like, I often get text messages from either people I know or somebody that knows me. You know, my son's going through this, my spouse is going through this, you know, my niece just took her own life. And I can't tell these people, no, like, this is what I chose to do this work. And if somebody's hurting, I'm going to help them. But I say all that to say it's a lot on my soul and my spirit. So I have to do as much as I can to try to replenish myself. Like, even before this Zoom call with you guys or this podcast, I went out and took a walk because I was like, I just got to, like, talk to God and kind of recenter my thoughts and get back to a place of even being able to pour into you guys from a fulfilling perspective and be authentic and sincere in sharing, because, you know, the depletion gets to be real.
Yeah, you have to recharge. I mean, that's real. But I mean, I can only imagine.
I'm still healing. I'm not healed, you know, and the grief, you get that on top of everything else, like, it just exacerbates everything.
And you, Shanti, you made me realize.
Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Say that, Jamie.
You
made me realize, and I want to say again, thank you again, because after your sister passed and I saw your post on social media, it made me realize that me still grieving the way that I grieved about my father was okay. It was okay, Shanti. And you made me feel cool and normal and not, man, why am I still tripping on this? Like, why, like, is like you just made a point. Grieving it's a different monster. It's a different beast. But for you to be as transparent as you have been when you've been posting your sister, and like I remember one post vividly when you were like literally in tears. You was like, this is rough today. Like, and I would just be driving on I-20 or 285 and I started thinking about my pops, and the shit it fucks me up. So once again, I want to say thank you again. You just never know how you're impacting somebody in a certain way, because I would see your post and would be like, okay, I'm okay. Like, I can grieve like this. I can grieve like this. So
grief is not a linear process. And don't ever let anybody put timetables or boundaries on how you gotta grieve. That's your loss. It is an individual process. You gotta go through this shit. It might be 10 years from now, and you still have certain triggers. Like, you don't cry as much maybe from year to year. Like, I'm a year and a month in almost, and no, I don't cry a lot, but like this morning, I had a moment, you know, and I'm just like, why the fuck are you not here? Like, I'm just like, how is it possible, Marie? And I was just saying it out loud. How are you not here? like I had a interview, my first international morning show interview, which is why I was up late last night. I was on the Sky News Network in London. And one of my big desires is to take Silence to Shame around the world. And so to be on a morning show in London was huge for our organization. But the only thing, y'all, I wanted to do was fucking call my sister. And as happy, so it's like you got these highs and these lows, and I had to like stay in the moment. I didn't break all the way down, but I was like, ugh, like, because my sister had just gotten her master's to become a therapist. So we were starting to work together anyway. Literally the very next week after she passed, we were supposed to do a panel together that we were co-producing in Charlotte. So like we were starting to do this work together in this space, and I'm like, man, my road dog, she ain't here. How do I move forward without her? But you know, I'm learning a lot, so I try to take my own advice, same advice that I give other people. I try to use it, but I do have to protect my peace at times, because as I feel like my pastor told me about this notion called the wounded healer. So as like I'm still wounded, but I'm still trying to heal other people, that I have to be even more aware of my own and acknowledge my own feelings and thoughts and emotions.
With the things that you know now, with what you've been through, and how would Shanti now, going back, dealing with the trauma that you had to deal with artists that was close, like a Biggie, like a Lisa, Left Eye, what are some things that you know now, like, because you lost, like I say, I know Lisa was probably closer to you than Biggie, but during those times, you know, from Big and then later on with Lisa Left Eye, what are some things, hindsight, like a wellness check-in, what are some things that you look at that you would say, okay, you know, grief, like you just said, grief is grief, but as far as just from a wellness standpoint, going through those
Do you mean
traumas.
like how I felt after they passed, or signs that I saw in other people?
Both.
So I don't think that I would have noticed anything back then, because wellness wasn't really a thing. I hate to say it like that, but it was about work, and you know, I don't know, you know, record companies, we, you know, probably thought artists and executives were just superhuman, you know, that we could go. And the one thing I would probably just tell any artist, whether it was back then or now, is you gotta take time out for yourselves. I remember when artists would be like, I'm tired, I don't feel like doing it. And instead of us being like, you know what, let me give you this day, we would be like, come on, you gotta do it.
Yep.
We need this radio station. We don't know. We trying to break this record. Woo. And it's like we put a lot of pressure on artists and executives.
Sleep when you did, all that dumb shit. You asleep when you did. We ain't got time.
Listen, that was us, right?
Yeah,
that was us.
I know.
It was the culture of the business. And don't get me wrong, like, yes, you gotta push yourself sometimes and work hard, but like, I wish I would have had the wherewithal to sometimes ask artists, like, how you really doing? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, is this really fucking with you, or what's going on? Because I certainly know I went through my own level of stress and anxiety, but didn't know what to call it. And, you know, sleepless nights and not eating right, or eating crazy, eating hot fries at 1 a.m. because you just skipped dinner, you know, whatever craziness we did. But like, we just, you know,
those being on the road, babe.
Exactly. So like when artists start withdrawing and not really wanting to be on the road or not interested, then yeah, those are red flags and signs that you have to look out for. Or if you see them self-medicating, you know, it's one thing, you know, look, people drink, people smoke, they do what they do. I am not the judgment police. You know, do you. But when you're doing it from an unhealthy perspective and you're just trying to put a Band-Aid over problems, and you're self-medicating because you want the pain to go away, that's a problem. Yeah. And that's when you gotta step in. But, you know, we never really felt like it was our, how do you say it? Not necessarily our right, but our place, if you will, to kind of step in to talk to artists, you know, if there was things going on from a substance abuse perspective. Like, it just wasn't really something that we thought we should do.
So do you think that that's very necessary now? Like, is that something, you know, artists or people like road managers should, you know, implement with their artists, is mental health? Like, have check-in days, have mental wellness days. Do you think that's very necessary?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And, you know, shout out to LVRN. I think I just saw an article recently where they hired a therapist that will be kind of like on staff, you know, where the artists can see the therapist if they need it. So that's really good. I think like we're seeing more record companies recognize the importance of emotional health and wellness. And again, I think COVID-19 kind of thrust people into that space, like it or not, because everybody's level of anxiety is heightened, even if you've never suffered from mental health challenges. I think this quarantine has certainly brought out a lot in people that they may not recognize about themselves. But I think, you know, like I gave a webinar this morning after I did the interview for Sky News. I slept for like 3 hours, got right back up because I was on with Sony UK, and I did a webinar for their whole team sharing my story, Sony Music UK. Last week, John Platt, he and his team brought me in, and I did a global webinar on mental health.
Oh, that's good. The big John did that. That's dope.
Yeah, so like, and then even before, earlier this year, before COVID, I spoke at Atlantic Records, LA office and New York office. And then last year, Scooter Braun brought me into his label, talked to the whole staff for an hour and a half about mental health. So I say all that to say more record companies are recognizing the importance as well. Even companies like Live Nation, you know, pre-COVID had put together, you know, plans around how to make sure that from a touring perspective that artists is taking care of their mental health. So it's starting to happen. And of course, you know, Music Cares has been around for years and they do a lot with substance abuse and have really added the mental health conversation because they really go hand in hand, substance abuse and mental health, but they've added that into the fold. So it's happening. We're making more strides. But any labels out there, holler at your girl. You know,
Damn right.
That's just the talk. That's just something. And I know you've been involved with I know you've been involved with a lot of other social issues. So like, is that taking away, is Silence the Shame, or are you still able to be involved with other things that you were involved with in the past?
So a lot of the projects that I did, like No Reservations Needed, it's still under the Silence the Shame umbrella. We have a partnership with the Atlanta Mission. We've been doing a big Thanksgiving dinner with the homeless community in Atlanta for over 8 years. And so we kind of loop that in as one of our service projects under Silence to Shame. You know, we've done work with the United Way in Atlanta, the Shoebox Campaign. We have another thing that we're gonna do, because, you know, whenever, like, because I look at like symbolic losses, whether it's loss of finances, loss of connectivity, loss of a loved one, those can have adverse effects on our emotional health and wellness too. So some of our passion projects have just been looped into Silence to Shame. Like before I left Motown and right when I came back, this was the first big charity initiative that I did. And that's when I knew, like, okay, God, like, I get it. This is the direction you want me to move in. You want me to use my influence for this purpose. I ended up collecting $30,000. I raised $30,000 for the city of Detroit. When the city morgue, this was in 2009, the end of 2009, early 2010. The city and state had lost funding for their morgue. And I was like, I saw an article on CNNmoney.com, and like there were bodies. These were people's mothers, uncles, cousins, sisters, brothers, stacked up like shoes in a closet. And I was like, you mean tell me you got all these bodies and these families can't afford to bury their loved ones and the state ain't got no money either? So I called my guy who knew Kid Rock, because you know he's from Detroit. I got Buster, I got Akon. So I raised $30,000 and buried 30 people in the 6-week period.
Kudos to you, Shanti. That's dope.
Wow, that's
a lot of people don't even know that. That was my first big thing.
Wow.
And so we called it May We Rest in Peace. So we're also, so I say all that to say too, we're gonna bring back May We Rest in Peace so we can help people with burial funds too with Silence to Shame, so they can have some dignity and take that stress and anxiety away. But hopefully that's, you know, when we get some big billionaire to drop a couple million that we can do all this work.
It's coming.
When I tell you, y'all, it's me and Cameron, and then we have Free and Portia who consult with us, and then our volunteer squad. But like, we doing the work of like a full staff, and we barely are making ends meet. But I feel like God is like, just hold on, just hold on.
Yeah.
But we got a lot that we want to do and so much we want to help. I want to be able to offer also, you know, we raised, you know, money on May 5th in the month of May. We didn't raise a ton of money, but we are going to give a portion of it to, I'm trying to figure out now which clinicians we're going to use, but I want to be able to provide some free therapy, and we might just only be able to do it, you know, for a handful of people in the Atlanta area, but for nurses who have been working through COVID-19, because I feel like they may experience some level of trauma and PTSD from having to work through the pandemic. So we're trying to, you know, implement some of that and then also do some free mental health first aid training. So we got good plans, y'all.
Well, that's what's up. I mean, God is using you, and we are blessed, and we are so thankful. And speaking of therapy, someone just asked, what do you look for in a therapist?
Yeah, I just saw that question. So it was one question before that, and then I'll go into this one. So when I started my therapy journey, I was in my early 30s. That was the first time that I was really stressed out, and right before I quit Arista Records. I left Arista, came back. I had just moved to New York. Can you imagine? I sold my house. I was only in New York a year and a half, but things had gotten so bad for me that I felt like this was not the right environment for me. And I quit, I walked away, came back home, stayed on my friend's couch for the summer. And then Jermaine convinced me to come back up to New York. But when I went through that whole situation, you know, after that, that's when I was like, I need to see a therapist. And my sister was like, you need to talk to somebody so you can really finally unpack the layers of what happened with Dad and forgive him. So that's when I first went to therapy, and I did that for about 3 months. Fast forward, I did not start back going to a therapist until after I considered taking my own life. In terms of how do you find the right therapist, you know, it's different for everybody. You know, some people call their primary healthcare physician and get a recommendation. There's some really great websites out there, therapyforblackgirls.com, NAMI.org, psychologytoday.com, betterhelp.com, and I can type those in the chat section, but you can go on and put your zip code in and find someone in your area, or just reach out to other advocates that you know to get recommendations. The good thing is most people are doing virtual sessions now. So I encourage you to like just start out trying to find, you know, the right person for you. A lot of people in our community prefer to go to someone that looks like them. And that's not to say that you can't go to a white therapist, an Indian therapist, an Asian therapist. But oftentimes, you know, Black and brown people, we want someone that we maybe feel like has experienced what we've gone through, or that can have empathy on what it's like being a Black man in America and, you know, not being able to jogging or do anything, you know, so maybe getting somebody who's a little bit more empathetic to that. So that's why oftentimes, you know, we want people that look like us. So therapyforblackgirls.com. It's not just for girls, it's for guys too, but going on a site from a cultural perspective to find a therapist could be a good thing. And then I tell people, you know, sometimes you might hate your therapist the first time, or it might take 2 or 3 times to find the right one. It's no different than regular doctors. You know, I've had OBGYNs or regular primary healthcare physicians that I was like, I don't really like their bedside manner. I'm gonna find somebody else.
Yeah. Same concept.
Right? Yeah. Same concept, or it might be like dating. You gotta keep swipe to the left, keep on swiping till you find the right one, you know. So don't look at therapy as like this thing that's, oh my God, it's so, you know, just treat it like you treat anything else, any other doctor that you're looking for. You know, you might have to go through a couple ones so you get the right one.
Yeah, it took me 3 till I found one that I felt really comfortable with.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I've known people that it's even 4 or 5 times, but if you find that right one, they might be with you for years.
Yeah.
And Shanti, we really, when I tell you, as long as I've been knowing you, I even learned some more tonight. And once again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on the Legendary Jerry podcast. You have been amazing. Thank you for taking out this hour of your time. Thank you to the Gathering Spot. During this COVID time, they always find a way.
Yeah, man. I love the Gathering Spot.
Yes, man. They're incredible.
TK and the whole team.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So thank you to the Gathering Spot for partnering with us. And we have, you know, we have some amazing content coming up. But Shanti, I just want to say thank you for everything. Can you tell everybody before we get out of here, how can they contribute to Silence the Shame? Give them your social media handles.
Yeah. So somebody also just asked, how do you get out of a bad experience with a therapist? Go to a new therapist. Let me just say that. Don't say that like being in a bad relationship. Don't do it. Get out, buy out early. So I had to answer that question, but you can find me. Or you can, well, let me start here. You can support Silence the Shame if you want to make a donation or just find out about what we do or volunteer. Go to our website at www.silencetheshame.com. Follow us on Instagram at Silence the Shame. On Twitter and Facebook, it's at SilenceTHShame, although we don't tweet a lot, but we do post a lot on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a podcast. We have over 30 episodes up. So if you liked what you were hearing from me tonight, it's a ton of content on our podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, or SoundCloud. So go on, subscribe to the podcast, listen, check it out. Also go to our YouTube page, Silence the Shame TV. We post a lot of our community conversations and panel discussions. We did a great one in November with the Atlanta Hawks right before a game. So check out our content. spread the message and just don't be afraid, to ask for help. You can follow me at Shanti Das 404. We didn't talk about this, but quickly, I started a IG show through COVID-19 called Yeah Wellness.
It's incredible too.
It is really good.
Thank you. I interview celebrities. I've talked to Charlemagne, Chris Webber, Keisha.
Envy.
Keisha Knight Pulliam. I mean, so many people, Common, Chuck D, and we talk about wellness. We talk about self-care. So it's really cool to kind of see how some of our celebrities that we love are coping through this. So, man, let's keep this conversation going. I know May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but let's keep it
thank
going
you for
after
saying
that.
Yes.
We need to keep it going. And before we scoot out of here, I've been doing something fun real quick with all of our guests. I've been asking them if they had to be stuck in quarantine, they have to pick between one or the other. So I'm going to give you two names, and you have to pick one or the other. So,
is this who I want to be stuck with?
Yes, who you want to be stuck with.
Okay.
So, L.A. Reid or Sylvia Rhone?
Wow.
Shanti. Auntie?
I would, man, y'all can't do that to me. I can't choose. Those are my two bosses, man.
Hey, man.
You know what? Ooh. Oh, man. Either one of them. I just.
Oh, stop, man.
Let me tell you this, because so LA, I know we would have fun and listen to music, and we would probably stay up doing trivia. But Sylvia and I kind of connect. We might do yoga, together. We might do some self-care stuff. So they both bring two very different
elements.
Yeah, you pull from different people in terms of what you think their strengths are and what their
I like that answer. I see you, Shanti. I like that answer.
We'll skip that one then. How about Outkast or Goody Mob?
Come on! I can't do that. I can't do it.
Hey, man.
Hey, we having a dungeon family slumber party that we all quarantining together.
Well,
everybody.
You need to say something like Idris Elba versus somebody else.
Okay, last one then. Pink or Toni Braxton?
Toni, only because I know Toni better, and we would stay up giggling all night. Pink, I loved. I haven't been around her in years, but me and Toni, we will cut up.
Okay, look, Jamie, I got one.
Uh-oh.
Tony Rich or Donnell Jones?
Man, probably Tony Rich, because he's funny as hell, man. Tony would have me laughing hysterically. Donnell, I love, is a sweetheart, but he and I never connected on some, laughing and camaraderie. But I love them both, but Tony would have me in stitches.
Okay.
Cool. Well,
Shanti, once again, thank you.
And that has nothing to do with their musical talents and tastes.
No, of course not.
They both thebomb.com.
It's Shanti Das 404 is all your social media, right?
Yeah, follow me at Shanti Das 404. And I do check my messages, y'all.
Yes. Jamie, tell everybody your social media handle so they can follow you, please.
Yeah, you guys can reach me at Miss Jamie Page, JAIMEEPAIGE.
And I am Big Jerry Clark on all social media handles. Please go to YouTube.
Jerry, I'm sorry. I was going to say, give my love to your family, please.
Oh, of course. Of course I will. My oldest daughter is here with me right now. But I am Big Jerry Clark on all social media handles. Please go to YouTube, subscribe to the Legendary Jerry podcast. And of course, before we get out of here, Shanti, we dedicate every episode to 3 people. Tonight is going to be 4. Our good friend, Mr. Shakir Stewart, Mr. Stanley Bethel, my mentor, my daddy, Mr. Thomas Clark. And tonight we're adding Marie Arnold to the list. We miss all of them. We love them. And Shanti.
You do it to me, Jerry. I said I wasn't going to cry, man. Damn.
That's right. You see it? I did it at the end. I love you. Thank you for everything, Shanti. Thank you.
Shanti. Thank you.
Hey, man, damn.
Hey, we're gonna grieve, and I'm gonna keep watching and know that I'm okay because of you, man. I appreciate you. Thank you.
We love you. Thank you.
Love you guys. Thank you, Jamie. It was an honor.
Yes.
All right. See y'all. Thank you.
Later.